I live in El Paso, Texas. I can have one foot in the United States and one foot in another country at the same time. I live on the front lines. I work on the front lines. My name is Cynthia R. Lopez, and I am an immigration attorney. I was receiving several calls from the media asking about the influx of people coming into the country. Why are they all coming? Why are they all being released? Nearly every day of my life, I see a client with physical or emotional scars. How could I possibly begin to answer all these questions and correct all the misconceptions without first telling you the full story? This is Borderlines.
Immigration in general, but asylum specifically, do you think that the law works for, Republicans, conservatives, liberals, whatever? Do you think it's working for anybody in the system?
No. I think it's actually I think that we have many people who are being detained when it is absurd for them to be detained. We have immediate family members ready to take them in, and instead we're spending $165 of our tax money a day to keep them detained when they are clearly not a threat, when they are clearly not a flight risk. They came here specifically to be with family members, and they're people with no criminal or immigration history. Most of the people we work with are arriving at our border for the first time in their lives. They've never been here before. And we are finding that it's more and more difficult to get them out of detention. And often they will have to wait until they have a credible fear hearing and have passed it before they're allowed out. And they just make the credible fear hearings more difficult.
That was my next question. Yes. I feel like they're making the standard, the standard is supposed to be reasonable probability of persecution. Do you feel like they're making the standard more difficult with the credible fear interviews?
My name is Bronova Alexandra, and I'm originally from Eastern Ukraine. My husband is US citizen. He's an ex-Marine. We got married like a year ago, and we were preparing our documents for my immigration, but in the end of March, the war started in my region. Russia was invading Ukraine. Even they officially don't admit it, but this is how it is. We have like a civil war, and people were dying like normal civilians, and it was very scary, and my family was personally threatened.
Sasha and I had gone to the border that morning on the advice of a family friend who had basically works for the Border Patrol, and he's a supervisor, and he had told us the day before there was a very strong possibility that if we went to the border, that with me being a former service person, that they would allow us into the country.
We decided to come to a border and ask permission to enter the country. I didn't have any visa or documents to enter United States, so we just came to a border, showed our marriage license, all documents about our relationship, and I just said we feel afraid to come back to my country. We don't feel safe. Can we enter and go through the process here?
Immediately they kind of surrounded my car, and then they pulled us into secondary, and they separate us. They take her inside, they leave me in the car.
They were interviewing me a long time, and they took me to ICE, it's Immigration Center.
ICE is like they're the ones who enforce immigration. So CBP is at the border, Customs and Border Patrol. They're usually only along the border.
Because they didn't have, that's what they say, or that's what we heard, that they have a lot of immigrants and they didn't have enough space in immigration center. So they moved us to a maximum security prison for people with criminal records like murder or drug trade. So the people were there for a long time and with a serious crime, and we were treated like real criminals. I was there with another 14 women. They were from Latin origins, Central America, Guatemala, Salvador, and Mexico.
When we went to the border, what we perceived and what really happened were two different things. We perceived we were literally coming to the door and knocking on the door, asking to come in, and that they would either let us in or they would just send us back. They did let her in, but they put her in prison. You know, that's what shocked me. And I think right now the whole ICE process is they lock everybody up. You know, she was no more threat to this country than anybody.
Which concerns me a little bit, because what does that mean? What cases are slipping through the cracks? Is there criminals that aren't being detained because we're focusing so much on the asylum cases and the people that are coming in, crossing the border right now? Or, you know, is that taking resources away from actually locating the people that are a danger in this country? That's one of my big concerns.
You're hearing on the news about all these gang members being released and all these other immigrants from Central America actually being released, and I'm like, well, why is my wife different? Why are they actually locking her up?
ICE immigration center comparing to maximum security prison sound for us like heaven, treating us very disrespectful. The room where we've been all the time was very cold and everybody got very sick, and I was asking for medical help, and I was saying that I'm really sick, I have a fever, I need help, and they didn't give me any medical help. Nobody could call us. We were close there and we could nothing to do. Nobody could connect neither to their lawyer, neither to their family. And they said that they will move us again to ICE. They didn't care, they just tomorrow, and we are waiting and we don't know for what.
What happens at this point is most of my clients that are detained, emotionally, they're kind of beat up. They've made this journey to get here, and then they've been detained, treated like criminals for a few months, and they usually are kind of starting to lose hope.
And we were knocking on the door and calling for help because we ran out of toilet paper, and we were 14 people in one room with one toilet, and we were super hungry, and they kept us in that room for about 8 hours closed without any information. And we supposed to have our dinner, and for dinner they brought for us bread with peanut butter and jam and banana, that's all, and everybody were super hungry. So it was a very hard day. I think that they lasted, I don't know, a year, maybe. It was endless.
You know, it seems like people are putting politics in front of people. And that's the problem. You know, you have politicians that are trying to use the issue as a wedge issue, but the ICE people seem to be very politically charged too. You know, and you know, there are people involved. There are lives at stake here. This isn't a political issue. This is a human rights issue. And as an American citizen who pays my taxes and who fought for this country, I do not think it's fair that my wife's caught up in this situation, and literally one or two decision makers hold our lives in their hands. And you know, we're just kind of merciless to them.
Why they come to the States, right? This the question that is everybody is interested. Why people want to immigrate here? I understand Americans that they don't like immigrants coming here. I think it's okay for the country to protect their border, to protect their citizens. The people that I was with, they are very spiritual. They all believe in God, very kind people. And everybody of them have children. They are all young women with like 2 or 3 children that were left at home, and they are very strong, because they were telling me stories that how they were walking in the desert for 5 days without food, without water. They want a better life, an opportunity to, at least an opportunity to have a better life. I think majority of them, they still were kept in prison. They let me go because my husband, he's US citizen, and he found a very good lawyer, Cynthia.
I started to realize how hopeless these people are and how they see me as really their only hope. They don't understand the legal system. They don't understand the process they're in. They don't understand why they're detained. You know, from their point of view, they're fleeing their country and they come here because they're afraid for their lives. So for them, it's like, well, why am I in prison right now? What did I do wrong? And they want to understand, you know, where they go from there, the legal system, and in some ways they see me as like their only hope to help them, to guide them through the legal systems.
K-Fox channel decided to make our story. Being a wife of ex-Marine and veteran, they could have, they say, paroled me, given the opportunity to come to the country, right on the border, but the officer didn't ask all documents and didn't give all documents to the immigration center about our relationship. It was discrimination to keep us at criminal prisons when we didn't commit any heavy crimes like people did who were there. So they did this story to put pressure on the immigration center, and they let me go right the next day.
We never meant to be caught up in a credible fear process. So that whole process has been kind of shocking. When we came to the border, we were coming there as my status as a U.S. citizen and a former military person who's honorably discharged to ask parole for my wife to come in. We never meant for her to be caught up in a credible fear interview.
So one issue is that in negative credible fear hearings, which is your last guaranteed chance to show that you have a credible fear of returning to your country and that proving whether you deserve or would qualify to apply for asylum.
Do you feel like the standard has changed with the credible fear interviews, the people that are coming in now?
No, I think there was a much higher standard. Almost every case I saw, maybe 90% of the women, I think, should have passed their initial credible fear interview.
About a week ago, she has to go in for a credible fear interview, which honestly, we didn't sweat it. We thought it was not going to be a big issue because the fact is there literally is a war in her city, in her whole region. It would be literally, her area of Ukraine is what they call the Donbass, and Mariupol is right on the border of Russia. And now there's actually Russian troops occupying the center of her city. Russian tanks and Russian soldiers are there. Well, her area is about the size of the state of Texas. It's a pretty big area. So, I mean, it's a big region, and this war's been going on all around there. The flight that you heard about getting shot down at MH17, about 30 minutes from her home. I mean, all this stuff is happening right there. So when she had her credible fear interview, I was completely shocked a week later when they called us in and they told us that she had failed it.
I failed my credible fear interview. It sounded like I'm living in a very safe place, that you can go on vacation right now to Mariupol. It's a war zone right now.
How strong do you think her case was for, asylum, and if she does get sent back, do you think she's in legitimate danger?
I think her case is very strong. Her family has been supporting her political opinion, her social group, everything. I think that she has a very strong asylum case, and I think she's in very serious danger if she were to go back. I know that yesterday evening NATO was issuing emergency meetings about everything that's going on in the Ukraine, and now they have satellite images of tanks in Ukraine in the area where she's from. So I think she's in serious danger. If she was, I don't even know how she would get in. Let's say a removal order is issued, how are they even going to get her to her town? Like she said, the airports are closed. There'd be no way to even get her there, first of all. And if she were there, she's in grave danger.
I think there's a lot of fear there. They're fleeing from a situation that was very difficult. You have to understand the situation that they're coming from, and I put myself in their shoes and I think about if I was to leave the country that I had been in my whole life, like what extent would I have to be at? How far to the edge would I have to be in order to actually do that?
She didn't fall under the guidelines of what a credible fear is. Well, I'm like, well, what more could be terrifying than to be in a war situation as a civilian? As a person who was in war as a Marine, it's a pretty fearful thing. And that's why I brought my wife here, that I knew what a war is all about. I've seen the terrors and horrors of war, and I've lived it, and I didn't want my wife to experience it, especially as a civilian. That's why I brought her here. So when they told us that she failed her interview, it shocked me.
You know, when you have clients that are crying to you that they can't go back to their country, that family has been killed, that they're scared for their lives, you know, it's very difficult, and you want to help them and you want to do everything you can to help them. The more that we do it, the more that we kind of, I think you start to get frustrated with the system because immigration law just isn't helping. We try to do everything we can, but it's almost like an uphill battle, and it's almost a losing battle. And
the United States is like a country that was built by immigrants, and I thought that they have more respect. Freedom is the most valuable thing. So sometimes if we say, I am not happy because I don't have this or that, if you have freedom, it's enough to be happy. And for me to be detained 2 months, not seeing sun, trees, birds, it was nothing worse to freedom. I would not even, if I would know that I would stay there like 2 or 3 months, I would not ever try to come to the States, because my freedom is more valuable than citizenship. But people that didn't have somebody to stand up for them were staying there until this moment, and I think majority of them got deported. I was lucky to be detained with people, good people like this, that are all very spiritual and kind and have a sense of humor. And for me it was an honor to meet these people, because majority of people in our planet, if they don't like their situation, they are just complaining that I don't like my government, I don't like my job, I don't like this. But people who are actually ready to change their life and do a really, you know, crucial step are only few, and these people who were detained with me, they are one of them. I would say that if US Army would want the best fighters in Marines, they should get this girl.